welcome to another SUSU Elections Debate 2013 with me, James Binns. Here with me are the candidates for VP Communities. Guys, if you'd like to go around and introduce yourselves.
Okay, hi everyone, my name's James Brown.
I'm Jess Taylor.
And I'm Ollie Coles.
Okay, over the course of the next 30 minutes, these guys are going to be telling you some of their key policies and some questions that I've pre-prepared. Guys, very briefly, please could you explain your key policies? So I'll start with you, Ollie.
Hi, my main policy is to try and get everyone who studies at sites and JCRs, international postgrads, to get the same experience as all the students on the Highfield campus do, whether that was societies, the AU, or just general sort of getting to know each other.
My main policies would be communication between SUSU and the off-site campuses and the smaller communities within there, and getting them to have their own identities on the smaller campuses, but also part of the same experience that they get opportunities here at the Highfield campus.
Okay, and James?
Yeah, I'll give you 5 sort of cheesy buzzwords, but transport, funding, collaboration, integration and support. It's all about bringing our disengaged students together and really getting the experience that your sort of conventional student gets. I suppose the overarching part of my manifesto is that all of my policies have come from student leaders, presidents and students, so it's not just what I think.
Okay, thank you for that, guys. Briefly, before we started this debate, we were talking actually about Winchester sites and how that position has been taken away. How is that going to affect your role, and how are you going to be able to engage with so many different people now across such varied campuses? I'll come to you first, James.
Okay, yeah, well, I mean, something we were talking about beforehand is that actually this opens up the position to not just being sort of your candidates from Winchester, from sites. What you've actually got is, you know, we've got 2 candidates here from Highfield and Jess from WSA. I think actually it's quite good. It gives us a good overarching view of what's going wrong and what we can actually try and change. So the sites are very much disengaged at the moment, but, and I say sites, there are 3 very distinctive sites, but there's different things we can do for each of those sites. And for each group within this remit, they've got different problems, but they're also integrated in different ways. So us having a look across the whole sort of spectrum, I reckon can sort of really help us engage our sites and our sort of disengaged groups by using the things that already work at other areas and don't work.
I heard you say what's gone wrong. So do you think then that there should be another SAB officer created for Winchester then, or how did you see that working then?
No, for me, I think, well, at the moment anyway, on paper, this looks a really good idea to me. Having these, bringing sites together with our postgrads, our internationals and our JCRs could have a really positive outcome. Yes, it's going to really spread the workload and it's going to be tough for whichever one of us takes on this role. But I think it's important that we bring different groups together, so you're not just having a site perspective, you're having a more broad sort of SUSU perspective. Okay,
Ollie, what do you think?
I sort of see this role sort of things like international postgrads have sort of been sort of pushed into it. I think you've got sort of like your JCRs, which live in halls obviously, and then you've got your Winchester, the NOC, the SGH and all the other sites, actual physical places, which are outside Highfield campus, which makes sense to have someone looking after all those because they all have the same sort of thing, like transport being engaged from a different place. But international postgrads, I think, is like it's a different thing, sort of kind of like put in there, because some of them will be in halls, some of them will be in sites, but others who are spread do just work after Highfield and are pretty engaged already. So it's going to be difficult. Obviously, we've got two types of internationals and postgrads: those living in halls and sites, and those actually just studying at Highfield.
Okay,
that makes things difficult.
Jess?
I suppose I kind of disagree. I don't think that Winchester and sites should have been merged as much. I mean, I understand with JCR because JCR is off campus. Mm-hmm. And I don't really think that we should have gotten rid of Winchester VP either. I mean, obviously I'm from Winchester, so I've had a very different experience to these 2. And we feel very disengaged. And I don't think that someone that hasn't had that experience can truly understand what it's like for off-site students. And it's just a completely different experience. And I think that's why, obviously, I would be the best person for it, because I've been through that. And each site has their own identity, and as much as they want to be part of it, and they do, they really want to be part of the main campus and have exactly the same opportunities, they also want to keep their own identity. They really don't like ending up becoming this big corporation part of everything. They want the best of both worlds.
Is that not what it's about, though? I mean, Winchester, they are a part of Southampton University,
and they just want the same opportunities that are offered here, and we're not given that. And to be quite honest, there isn't a union at Winchester at the moment. It's shut most of the time. There's 2 nights offered each week, 1 night a week, and they alternate between each week. I mean, Nicole's doing a fantastic job, but I do think by putting more pressure on the vice president that takes this role, obviously the sites are going to suffer because you're not having as much time to deal with them and to focus on them. But again, as like I said, I mean, WSA has a very high amount of international students, with English students. So that is a really good area to focus on, because that's quite an awkward area.
What I would say, you said there that you can't really engage and focus on these areas if you haven't been a part of them, if you haven't been a Winchester student.
I don't say you
I mean,
can't, I just don't think you'd quite understand.
You can't understand, but where I come from when looking at sites is that, and you sort of alluded to it, is that Winchester, SGH and Knock are three really very, very different sites, very distinctive. So your perspective from Winchester would be entirely different from someone coming from SGH, say, who is actually quite engaged and actually feels a lot of SGH students feel a big part of CC. It's just we need to support them on certain issues. So for me, I mean, if you're just coming from one sort of perspective as a site student or as a Winchester student, you're not going to get the same perspective as a Knock or an international student. So where I think what this role does really well is it gives us an opportunity to actually go out and engage with these different groups and really make sure we know what every single person wants, rather than coming from, just sort of saying, if you're a Winchester and sites VP, if you come from Winchester and your perspective is really about Winchester, you don't want to, Knock to be left behind, SGH to be left behind. So where this role works for me is the fact that it pushes you to really be engaged with those groups that possibly otherwise you maybe wouldn't have been.
I want to bring Ollie in here.
I say, it also allows you to, with that, you've got also your site officers beneath you. You've got the Winchester site officer, the Knock site officer, the SGH site officer, who can act as your voice on the site, so that you can speak to them to find out what the issues are, rather than having like just a Winchester VP. Otherwise, it makes sense to have a Knock VP and a SGH VP. You've got the site officers do those roles, and then you sort of head them up as well, and then can take all their information to bring.
Yeah, I've heard all of you briefly sort of talk about time, and this role is going to mean a lot. It's going to be difficult for you to engage with all those sort of different communities at different sites. So you see the role as being able to help the other on-site SABs basically try and work together to feel engaged with the communities, with the university. Okay. Has anybody else got anything to say on that point?
I'd just asked Ollie, you said you feel like quite a lot of international and postgraduate students are already quite engaged. So you think there isn't as much of a problem with international and postgrad engagement?
I think it's more, there's ones who study at Highfield, like I know quite a few who sort of come down constantly, so they've got like the coffee morning down here, they've got there's international events that happen down here that the Erasmus Society has them all down in here when they study at Highfield. I think it's the ones that are out in the sites and who live at halls are slightly less engaged. So I think it's like a half and half. There's some who are pretty engaged and they come to all the events that we do, and they go, like there's the international sports day coming up and they'll go to that. But it's the ones outside we need to sort of bring in and bring them down as well.
Can I just
yeah,
that one? I completely agree. I mean, obviously, I've done a bit of research into the postgrads and international students here, but from experience with international and postgrads at WSA, obviously I say WSA is the largest site. That's what I was making the point at. And obviously, Knock does feel more involved because it's smaller and it's a lot closer. But with postgraduates that I spoke to at WSA and international, there's no communication between SUSU and them. International is very closed off. There is not very much interaction. For example, they had the Chinese New Year celebration, and I saw 3 or 4 English students, and there's hundreds there, but they don't come. So that is an area that really does need targeting, and for that, I am glad that they have put it in together, because beforehand, like when they had Winchester VP, they were still ignored when they shouldn't be ignored, and they should be brought into the fold. And you should still get the same experience for your postgrad as you do for your BA. You should still get all the opportunities.
That's what I'm getting at, that engagement isn't just our events and things we put on. The engagement needs to be everything we run at CC, from the social side to the academic side that we represent, the housing, everything we look at. I don't think we should be looking at engagement in terms of just postgrads and international in terms of events that they get involved in. I think it's really important we look at engaging postgraduates and internationals with what we can offer them.
It's the communication, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's no communication, and there needs to be
more
I think that's good. I mean, you guys obviously aren't agreeing very much to begin with, which is good. That's what we want. That's what people want to know at home. Why are you different? Why should they vote for you? So that links on from what you're saying to another question. If you were to prioritise certain university groups over another, the ones that you feel need to be engaged more, which ones would you focus on? I'll come to you first, Ollie.
I focus on sort of the JCR sort of groups, mainly because as first years everyone lives in JCR, everyone sort of experiences the JCR, the private rented JCR live after first years who live in halls, as well as sort of first year postgrads lives in halls as well, and it's the majority of most international students at some point pass through halls as well, so it kind of gets everyone sort of there with you, so you've got a chance to, it's the first time they come to university, it's a chance to really actually engage them and try and keep them engaged throughout the whole time at university.
Okay, that's quite interesting. Someone else mentioned that in a previous debate actually about the JCRs and the role of sort of freshers and such. No one else? Just the JCRs?
I think because the JSOs have such a big input, I think, because they work with part of the JSOs. Obviously, there's a media aspect, there's a RAG aspect in there, there's a campaigns officer, there's the welfare officer. Actually links into all different parts of the university as well through the JCR.
What if those groups aren't working properly though? If they're not working effectively together as a group?
That's what I think. That's what I think needs working anyway. That's what I plan to do, is actually to reinstigate how the JCRs should be working, rather than at the moment they just actually focus on events. They should be bringing more into welfare, more into bringing societies into halls.
Okay.
If you're looking after all the residents, not just like the few key ones that come to the events.
Okay. Jess?
I mean, I find it really difficult to kind of prioritise one or the other. I would say it would probably be international, JCR, postgraduate and offsites, because that is what I'm interested in. It's very difficult for you to...
Broad.
Yeah. I would say if I really had to narrow it down, obviously offsites would be one of the biggest focuses, because that's your entire university experience. Like, that's not JCR where it's just your first year and then you move on. That's your entire university experience.
Right, okay.
Again, with international, they're out in a place that they don't really know, and it'd be fantastic if we could get a much better communication with them. So probably those two, if I really had to pick.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Yeah, again, we've got to make it clear that we're not prioritising one and forgetting about the others
Yeah,
in this remit. The reason for this is we are engaged with all of them. But the one that springs to mind immediately for me as international students is the area I've probably been most heavily involved with. We've got over 7,000 international students here at the moment, and I think at times they get an absolutely rubbish deal from the university and actually from us as well at CC. From a pre-sessional course that doesn't really work, to fees that are extraordinarily high and that rise, constantly without the students actually knowing, and just sort of the orientation events that don't work. International Welcome Week, which is just a warm-up to Freshers Week at the moment. International students get a raw deal, and that really needs to be looked at.
So you say that international students get a raw deal. What exactly are you going to do, though, to make it better for those students?
Okay, well, the pre-sessional course, I think I was talking about, that needs a whole sort of change from the university, first of all, to make sure it's an academic course that actually really reflects international students' needs and means they're prepared for their courses here, because otherwise the course at the moment isn't preparing international students who don't speak the language well enough, and they come in and they really struggle with some of these issues. To counteract some of the problems that they actually have when they're here, workshops is something that I want to put on, settling international workshops in particular, that look at settling students into the UK, to studying here, to learning a little bit about Southampton and what goes on, and then throughout the year putting on these workshops and events that actually help with academic issues. So dissertations, presentations, working with tutors, speaking a second language constantly. They need to be helped out with these problems that university inductions at the moment just aren't doing enough to do. I mean, there's a ton of things I'd actually really like to do for international students, but the academic issues and the welfare side of things is something that's been ignored in the past few years, and we've just looked at events, and that's something that I really want to focus on, that we're giving international students the same opportunities we are. They're engaged, they're orientated to Southampton, so they're put on a level playing field, so they're not starting a course behind everyone else.
Yeah, like when you say about you'd like to focus, if you had to, on like Winchester sites, that sort of thing, what could you do in your role then to actually help them be engaged? Because I appreciate what you're saying, it's difficult when they're over there and we're over here. What can you do?
Well, first of all, I think mainly from my experience as being part of SUSU and being on sites, is that there is no communication. For example, Nicole, that she's putting on at the moment, this Give It a Go Winchester, and a lot of the people I've spoken to, I'm having to physically go around and tell them about it, and she's having to physically go around and there's posters.
Yeah, okay.
And there is a big communication problem at Winchester. So that is the first thing I would target, really.
Between their own students?
Between the students and the SUSU, there is very, very little communication. No one knows what's going on.
What would you actually do?
It would just be going and speaking. I mean, obviously, a lot of Winchester students don't come in, or they're in for set times and then they leave, but it's going to the halls, it's emailing them to their accounts and letting them know what's going on. It's putting posters around, it's going door to door and selling tickets. That's what actually worked, and we had that when we had Shana as our VP. Like, that was really effective and has been proven to be effective with the Winchester students. So that's what I would do, and it's not all about events and things. It is things like welfare, things like RAG. I mean, we had a great RAG officer last year, Graham Reed, and he really got things going, and he got people interested and coming to it, and that's what I want. People actually having a place to go that's not part of the university, well, is part of the university, but is somewhere else to go that's there for them. And at the moment, I don't feel that Winchester has that, and I would like to improve that for Knock as well. I'd like them to feel that they are more involved with Southampton, and transport is a massive issue as well. I really want to set up transport.
Yeah, that's something I think we'll probably come on to later if we've got time.
It's a big topic.
Anything want to come back on this, Ollie? Or?
Kind of the whole thing that James saying about international sort of being a raw deal for the university. What I want to try and change is the fact that when they're in halls, they're kind of shoehorned into one, like there's an international block I know it happens at Monty and Glen, for example. I've sort of experienced it at Monty, but they're all just in one block and kind of left to themselves. I'd like to see them more integrated throughout postgrads as well. I know postgrads sometimes like sort of quieter study spaces, but if they actually want to experience sort of like with other students as well, so having them all just in one little block, actually spread them out a little bit.
Okay.
So when I was in first year, I lived with it was myself and sort of 6 other nationals, internationals into a flat, because they sort of stuck us there with like, the maturer students as well, and it was so much different, considering that I sort of used to hang out with all my friends in a different block and see what that was like, and it was all mainly sort of like based on drinking or going out. But this whole thing was all based on like, you bring food around, they sort of all cook for each other, and I thought that was brilliant, and I like to see that more sort of spread throughout sort of the halls, so everyone can experience that.
That's good. I mean, that links on to the next question, which is, should SUSU accept that some communities, some people just cannot be engaged? Are they failing to engage with SUSU, or is SUSU failing to engage with them? I mean, what do you think? I'll come to you first, Jess.
I think no. First of all, absolutely not. You can engage with every single group.
Okay.
There is no reason that you shouldn't, and that's what hopefully, if any of us get, obviously one of us will get this job.
I hope.
Hopefully,
someone.
yeah, someone will. But whichever one of us gets this job, that will be, I'm sure they'll do a fantastic job in that. But it is kind of, I think, like a horrible circle that, people don't feel that they're getting what they want from SUSU, so then SUSU thinks they're not interested.
Okay.
And it just goes round and round. Like with the Give It a Go, nobody knows it's on, so no one goes to it, but then SUSU goes, well, they're not interested, so we'll pull the funding. And it's just a horrible circle, round and round. So we need to break that circle, basically.
Okay. So you're saying that you need something to break that circle. What is that something students want, do you think?
What, from SUSU?
From SUSU, to be able to get involved?
They want to feel included, I think. The same with postgrads, international and JCR. I think they just want to feel included, like they have a voice, and that we're listening to them, really. I think communication is the biggest problem at the moment, and that really needs to be fixed.
Okay. Ollie?
I agree with that. I think communication is a big issue. I feel that they should never stop trying to engage people. There's always people who want to be engaged. Even if you sort of like get occasionally people, it's very hard to reach people. I think they should still keep trying. Because after all, we are their students' union. We're there to sort of support them on sort of welfare issues, sort of housing campaigns. Things like the advice centre is a fantastic thing that I didn't even know anything about until the other week. That they could look at your housing contract. But I still think communication. We need to push out and try and actually show people what we can do. We're not just a nightclub, a bar, a shop.
Okay.
We're all the other little things as well. That all the other organisations.
Okay. Jen?
Yeah, well, I'm going to agree and say that no, we should never accept that certain communities and groups can't be engaged and can't be reached. Yes, there'll be people out there who know what we do and don't want to be a part of it, and that's fine, as long as they know what we do and all the options we have. But as Ollie said, we should never ever stop trying to engage everyone and give them the opportunities. And I think that's where it comes down to, making sure that everyone knows what is available to us, what is available from us to them. And JCRs is part of that. At the moment, our JCRs are really struggling and really almost failing to do more than just events. And that's, for me, a really key area that we can start talking about. We've talked about communication. All three of us have said that communication isn't working well. And obviously this doesn't affect everyone. But if we can get our JCR committees really effectively communicating with their
something
students.
Something that Ollie mentioned earlier,
And signposting what's available. Your first couple of weeks when you're here, if you don't know what's going on, you're scared to ask, you don't know who to ask. If your committees are there to say, the advice centre's there, go and speak to them. All the student services that we have here, they need to be well signposted, well maintained, and make sure that we're actually reaching everybody. But no, I wouldn't say we can't not engage everyone. We can. We absolutely can engage
this open
everyone.
to all of you. Does there not come a point though where you have to say, okay, we've tried with certain groups, it's not succeeding, we can't afford to waste any more resources, forget it?
I think it's important we don't sort of close it off completely, sort of say, we're not going to try. I think we should just leave a little dangling rope out there, sort of say, right, you obviously don't want it at the moment, but if you do, here's how you can sort of engage with us. Here's the opening times of the advice centre. Here's who to contact if you want to sort of come down to the Cube one night or something.
Okay.
We should never stop, but just leave something there and not try and push it too much.
Okay.
That can sometimes annoy people more than
Yeah.
if you keep trying to keep pushing it.
We haven't thrown enough resources and enough time and enough ideas at it yet to be anywhere near that stage to say, oh, actually, we've tried, let's give up, which I don't think we should do anyway. If we're spending inordinate amounts of money and it really isn't working, then maybe we need to look into it. But at the moment, we haven't got anywhere near spending the amount of money we should spend on our site students, on our disengaged students. We haven't spent enough time really trying to bring them into the fold. It's all very well talking about these things every year, but when it comes down to it, we haven't physically gone out there and done enough.
Okay. So you want to spend more money?
Yeah, in places we need to spend more money.
Where are you going to find it?
Absolutely. there's money available. There's money that we're wasting on things that aren't working. You know, we have wasted such a hell of a lot of money on nightlife that really hasn't worked. And I know they're revamping nightlife, and that's something we're looking into doing. But there's money that's available, and we know that. We've all been talking about some of the big projects that CSU are looking to do at the moment. Sort of DCI projection for Union Films, which is a £45,000 investment, and yeah, we should be doing that, and we should be constantly investing in our union. But there is money available to us, and something like buying a minibus for Winchester, that's not a huge capital spend, and it's the sort of thing we should be doing. And we can do it. We all know we can do it. We've seen the amount of money that the union spent over the last few years. The money is there. We need to use it effectively for some of the areas we haven't used it before, because we focus on the core with our spending, and then we leave out our sites and our disengaged groups.
Okay. It's interesting, you know, all of you, none of you are international students, none of you are parents, I'm guessing, none of you are postgrad, so how can you effectively represent these sorts of people in the university? Go on, Jessica, you've obviously got...
Well, just, I suppose the obvious thing is that I am an off-site student. I have had a fantastic university experience. It's still happening, I still love it, but it has been very different from the one that these two have had. So I do think that I would be the best at understanding that situation. But also, I mean, I have a lot of close postgraduate friends that I know how it goes through. Obviously, it's very only limited to the arts, but I do understand that. And you know, in first year I had 8 international students. The whole of Erasmus is filled with international students, so I have engaged with them, and we have so many international students there that, you know, you befriend them obviously, and you get to know their ways. And I think that I've probably interacted best with the smaller communities. And obviously the JCR that we had in Erasmus Park was a lot smaller, and I took part in that as well. So I don't know, I feel like I've come into contact with each of these communities quite a lot in my 3 years. So I think I'd be able to draw on those experiences to really utilise them and take them forward.
So to me, and sort of the anecdotal side of it is less important, and that isn't the most effective way for us to actually engage with all of these groups. Yeah, I'm none of the things that are in this category. I'm not an international or postgrad or a site student. But, and I'll never confess to be an expert in any of these areas, Jess being from WSA doesn't mean she's an expert in postgraduate students. You know, we're not ever going to be an expert in all these areas, and we have a fantastic system here at CC, which means we can be. We have all our student leaders, have all our presidents, and we have the students. That's the way we're going to represent their views. We're going to go out there and we're going to talk to them. Your student leader is there to represent all of those people who they, you know, international officer is there to represent the international students.
So you want the student leaders to help?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. My manifesto is built on points that have come from my student leaders.
Okay, Ollie, yeah.
I say, yeah, I agree with that. They need to use the student leaders to talk about communication, getting communication out to students, but I feel we need to get the communication back in as well and get it from our student leaders up to us. Again, yeah, I've never been in any of those positions. I'm hoping not a parent as well. But sitting where I am, I'm sort of like being more of a 4th year now, so all my friends now have turned into postgrads, so I can sort of get information from them internationally, to live with international students in my first year, and having worked at sort of many locations in CSU now, I've spoken to international students during like the summer holidays when they come in. I'm still working postgrads as well. We get them into like the areas a lot, so manage to find out what they're talking about and the issues that are affecting them, and hopefully I can sort of learn to fix that.
Okay.
Can I say so?
Yeah, of course.
Just to come back to yours. Obviously, I'm not saying that you not being part of a site student or living in internationals makes you any less for this position, but I do think I really honestly do think that having contact with these communities and interacting with them, like you've lived with international students as well, is very important, because it is a very, very different experience. It's a very, very different university life for them. And although, yes, SUSU has got many things in place with the student leaders, and there is breakdown in communications in certain places, and I think actually interacting with these people outside of SUSU, just in your university life day to day, is very, very important. And
absolutely. I'm not saying that isn't, because I've spent 2 years on the pre-sessional project with international students. You know, a lot of where my manifesto ideas have come from those 2 years. But then again, I've gone to the international officer, I've gone to those students and said, this is what I think, am I wrong? And if I am wrong, tell me what you want me to do. And that, to me, is the strongest, most efficient way. Otherwise, you end up just sort of hearing bits and pieces from certain groups. If we use our system here, you know, we have a really good elected group of students who help us, and I think it's massively important that we use them.
Yeah, I mean, all of you have mentioned at some point transport as well. I'm assuming it's all in your manifestos. why is transport so key, and what would you do to, I'm guessing you'll want to improve it, what would you do to improve it, Ollie?
For me, the people I've talked to, sort of like the main concerns they've had is concerns, I think, sometimes like the unibus system, trying to get them, like, students to like to the NOC or the SGH, especially during like rush hour. They can, for like a half an hour journey, it can take them up to like an hour and a half sometimes. One sort of things is looking into the cost of trying to get direct minibus, not the ones that go all over Southampton to hit every single bus stop, ones that actually go as like the crow flies straight there. Things of the Winchester as well, I don't like the fact that people have to actually change transport to get down here.
Yeah. Okay.
The fact that we actually do have a bus network that will go to every single other site apart from Winchester, straight from Highfield campus. And I think that needs to be looked into to try and get an actual bus that will go straight to the Winchester campus. So our students in Highfield can go to Winchester, and Winchester students can come here.
To help build a one community feel.
Yeah, if we're one community, we should all be connected rather than having to sort of walk different bits and get a bus, get a train to get down there, and not just rely on our minibuses.
Okay, James?
Yeah, I suppose boiling it down to the 3 sites for transport issues. Winchester, I said earlier, I think they need their own minibus, because not only can that be used to get from here, from here at Highfield over to Winchester, and that really will help. It's also something that can be used within Winchester, between Erasmus Park, between the campus, used as a sort of safety bus scheme. Winchester as well, flat rate taxi costs, because the amount that the taxi costs, some can be 30 quid, some can be 70 quid, I've heard. We need to negotiate with one taxi company to make sure they're offering the cheapest possible price, and we tell our students that. Another thing, a big thing actually, that I think is important for all of our site students is using the safety bus we have at the moment and using the booking system we have at the moment. There's 2 different things. We've got a room booking system that does vehicles and a safety bus. Let's put the safety bus on the room booking system. So if you've got 4 students from Winchester who are out in Oceana, they can book onto that minibus, that safety bus, to pick them up at 2:30, take them back home to Winchester. Doesn't, cost the earth, cost £2.50 a person. That's the sort of thing we should be doing.
Okay, I'm going to go over to Jess now.
They've pretty much said my policy is as well, pretty much. Basically, for sites, transport is impeccably important, really. Winchester, obviously I'm based in Somerset, doesn't have any access. I mean, we know of this mythical safety bus, but you never see this mythical safety bus, and no one knows how to get hold of it, no one knows how to book it. And I imagine the same for Knock. Again, with Knock, they need to get to and from Highfield just as much as we do. But yeah, I mean, just for safety for the students. I mean, at the last exec meeting we had students who do societies here, and for the Winchester students, they have no way of getting there and back again. And obviously it gets dark and it gets unsafe. And more than that, it's expensive for them, very expensive. So that would be a main issue for me that I would deal with is transport for societies, for sites, and transport for evenings as well. But yeah, also, I mean, like setting up a regular shuttle bus is what I would like to do, really. And also, there is so much information out there that isn't utilised within the university. For example, there's like a bus ticket, a train ticket you can get that includes getting a bus as well, and no one knows about it. Like the booking system. Yeah, getting a little manual out there that tells all of the students in their first few weeks of being there, these are all the different ways you can get to Southampton, these are all the free ways that we offer you as SUSU, and these are the ways that you can pay if you want to do something different. Okay. But just getting the information out there again.
So
just briefly.
Yeah, I think as well, it's not just about moving students in the evenings as well. It's stuff like getting students on Knock and SGH back to Wide Lane or Highfield campus on Wednesdays, for example, at 1 o'clock, finish lectures done on 1, get back as soon as they can to get onto the AU teams and society.
Do you think that SUSU in some occasions has been or is becoming sort of the fun police? You hear sort of some of the initiation ceremonies now for societies have got to change. Do you think that's an accurate description of SUSU?
I think SUSU has its responsibility to sort of abide by certain laws that the government puts out, but I do think as a nation anyway we're coming too heavily on health and safety, and certain things are ridiculous. But it's the certain things I do. If you talk about the initiations, if it's about too much drinking, too much alcohol, I don't think clubs actually do that anyway. If everyone has a choice to opt in or opt out, they should be looked on individually. I think sort of more training could stop that happening.
But it's personal choice. It's
personal choice. I've never heard of anyone actually physically forced into doing something, shunned if they're not doing it.
So to me, I don't think it's what you've just said. They're physically forcing people into doing things, or health and safety, or drinking. To me, it's the way it makes certain people feel. I think that's the problem with initiations. That what they do is they make people feel they can't be part of something. They can't be part of a society or sports club. Someone a little bit shy, a little bit more reserved. Because some of these sports clubs and some of the JCR committees are really quite intimidating for people to go towards. And if these initiations and these cultures make them think, actually, I don't want to be part of that, they don't enjoy their university time as much as actually they should. And to me, I don't think CC's being the fun police. I think it's saying, let's cool down these initiations, still have fun, still go out and do what you're doing. Don't have initiations, don't make people feel as if they can't be involved.
Yeah, I think a fair few of us have seen the rugby lot naked in clowns a couple of times, so, you know. What do you think?
I've had a rugby social happen at somewhere I worked once in first year, and I'm still scarred.
Jess, what do you think about this?
I mean, I've never personally witnessed any of these initiations. We don't have them in
Oh,
WSA.
you might be lucky
and our
then.
JCA are
You might
really
be
lovely
lucky.
and don't do initiations like that either. So it's a bit odd. But no, I mean, SUSU isn't there to stop people having fun, especially for sites. I mean, it does its best to make sure that you have fun and to make sure that you have a great experience. But obviously it has responsibilities, like Ollie said. You can't have the fun without the responsibility of looking after people. Like, you can't have over 300 people in a place that can't take more than 200, for example. It's just being sensible. So I imagine with these initiations, it's probably the same thing. They're not trying to stop you having fun, they're just trying to be a bit sensible and give the opportunities to everybody, like those people who are more shy.
Okay. The last question I want to come on to very quickly, if you can, because we're running out of time, is JCRs. If no one complains about them, should we just carry on as we are? Because sometimes the JCRs aren't doing the jobs, they're not working together, as you mentioned earlier, Ollie. What should we do about it?
I think we should make sure they actually do work, because if people don't complain, it might be because the lack of communication is brought up, it might be because they're too shy to complain, don't actually know who to complain to. But I think it's unfair if you get one JCR A, who's doing an amazing job and doing all these wonderful campaigns and events and sort of being great welfare for the students, running fantastic sports teams, and then you get one JCR who's doing nothing towards the students, and they're not getting the similar sort of experience that they should be getting.
Okay.
So I think, JCRs need to be looked into sort of properly, so they don't actually just focus on like the odd events. They actually work throughout the whole entire year, not just for Freshers Week.
Okay, Jess?
Yeah, I mean, JCR has got a responsibility, and I don't think that they are fully utilising their potential. JCR seems to have this association that they're just events, and that's what they're there for, and that's not what they're there for. And it's a great opportunity to really get involved with your first year and deal with the first years and have a great experience and learn about welfare and RAG and, you know, all of these things. So I think that they should be looked into, and I think that they should really fill the potential.
Good,
there.
okay. James?
Yeah, of course. Even if people aren't complaining, the number of official complaints aren't that high. But anecdotally, if you speak to people, there are a ton of complaints about JCRs. So yeah, definitely we should change them. I think for JCR committees, we should have like a kind of job spec. Okay. So what we've got now is a media code of conduct. We've got something for academic presidents as well, which says what they need to do. So any prospective JCR committee candidates who come to us need to have a look at this job spec and say, this is what you're expected to do. If you don't like it, don't do it. And then we want things like, you know, targets. I don't want to go too in depth and be like, you must do this, must do that. But it'd be nice if our committees are setting targets throughout the year that they need to achieve a certain number of campaigns, events in there too, of course. But yeah, they need to change the culture at the moment to make sure we're including everyone, and they're running more campaigns and looking more into the welfare aspect of things.
Excellent.
Yeah, I think as JCRs, they welcome students into halls on the opening weekend. I think they should be the ones there to introduce students into the whole SUSU. So with like bringing your media in, your RAG, your societies, your sports, bring them more in, and then like let your students go and fly off into
Yeah, because the bum fight and things like that isn't enough.
They're the first port of call for most freshers. That's who they see first.
Well, thank you for that, guys. And if you're watching at home and you're a JCR, want to be a JCR, watch out, because these guys are coming for you. Okay, guys, just a very quick final introduction. Give your policies, who you are again, and back to the camera.
Okay, right. As I said, my name is James Brunt. Things I'm really looking to do is to integrate all of our student communities together. People who are underrepresented at the moment, we want to make sure they have the same opportunities that everybody else is getting. We want to make sure that our various different sites feel included, that our postgrads, our internationals, diversity, we haven't really spoken about diversity, different groups at the moment aren't getting represented, they're given new opportunities.
Thank you. Jess?
Yeah, just to build communication between the smaller communities and between the off-sites campuses with the main campus to give them the same opportunities that you guys get here. And also, like with international students and postgraduate students, to get them more involved and to really give them the experience that they should be getting and that they shouldn't be shortchanged just because they are more of a minority. To deal with transport, as you've heard us talking. But yeah, really just to kind of get you guys to feel part of the community, but retaining your own community as well.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
Ollie?
Yep, just to finish off, I like to like three main things, trying to engage all the sort of external students we have in halls, in sites and in the postgrads and internationals, to make sure they have the same experience as everyone else in Southampton, and just generally to improve their areas and improve the communication so that information can flow down to them and then flow back to us so we can get the best deal for them.
Excellent. Thank you very much, guys, for coming along. Please vote for at least one of these guys. Don't let Ron win. Please join us again for another debate. In the meantime, if you want to look at any of the manifestos, you can check us out at susu.org/elections. Thanks again and tune in for the next debate.